All right, y'all. We back. Today I want to talk about the just mess and chaos that's been going on with the Patriots after their season, from winning the game, winning their last game, and not getting the number one pick to firing Jerod Mayo like not even 2 hours after the game, firing Van Pelt, and just seeing like what's the direction of the team from now on. Starting with the game itself, it was just annoying and just crazy unexpected to see the team playing so well and fixing up the issues that they had the whole season long. Like suddenly receivers were getting open. Suddenly the O line was blocking really well. Suddenly the pass rush was getting there and the corners were playing good. It's just everything blended together great. But like on the last game, the one game you actually needed to lose, it would have been best to lose. Why is everyone playing great all of a sudden? And I can't really like blame the players because at the end of the day, they're playing for their jobs. They're playing to win. That they still have to make money. So I can't really blame the players. It's more just like annoying and unfortunate, like a bad coincidence, if you will. So it's just yeah, I know they were playing backups, but even something like blocking and getting the gaps open, or a running back hopping into the right gap like Gibson, it's something we didn't see all season. So why is it showing up now? That's not to here nor there. The um the play calling was also different this game. There were more RPOs, more Antonio Gibson involvement, which is what the fans and the team has been lacking for the whole season. Is specifically the RPOs and the Gibson involvement. So it's another thing. Why wait till the last game to do it? The players had more energy, and this whole like thing cultivates where I feel like Mayo was doing it out of like spite and trying to be petty. Because whenever the TV was switching to him during the game, he would he'd be laughing, he'd be smiling and whatnot. It's kind of like he knew his job was done, and he was just trying to like win as badly as possible to fuck him up. Just similar to how Lovie Smith did it against Houston a couple of years ago. Um, the star of the game was Joe Milton. He had one of the best QB performances, just of the overall season. He went crazy. There was one play where he broke like three tackles on a sack, threw it 30 yards downfield, straight on a needle to the pylon, and like you're just watching. And you're like, who is this guy? Like, is he better? He's not better than Drake May, but it's like, why? Where's this coming from? The one game you again, I need to like reiterate the one game you need to lose, and you have like your quarterback, your third stringer playing out of his mind right now. It's ridiculous. Never would have expected that, honestly. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Pats going into the offseason they traded Joe Milton. They could probably get some good value for him. I don't know if the rumors circulating about teams inquiring are like smokescreen or legit. But for me, I feel like you could get at least a fourth. I would value him at a fourth round pick for Joe Milton, and I would probably make that trade to get a third string QB, to get a fourth rounder for a third string QB. With the state of the roster right now, I would definitely do that in a heartbeat and whatnot. So the Joe Milton thing was just crazy to watch because he's playing absurd. That like I wouldn't say he's a building block because he's the backup. So I feel like the only option is to trade him. So the Pats won the game, annoyingly, but they won the game and they dropped from number one to number four. Now the pick itself isn't the issue; it's more the leverage that they lost. Because when we were at number one, there's multiple teams in the top 10 that need a quarterback. Off the top of my head, the Browns, the Titans, the Giants, the Raiders, the Jets, and the Saints. So six teams in the top 10 need a quarterback. So if the Pats were number one, the trade haul that could have got out of that would have been huge for the franchise. It would have been absolutely just like organization changing that trade. I'm talking like Trey Lance level because it's just a giant bidding war. So when you go from one to four, yeah, you lose. You probably lose out on Travis Hunter. That's not the issue. It's the trade and asset you would have got back. That's like the big loss in this situation. But not even 2 hours after the game, you check Twitter and you check Schefter. Mayo's fired. Hour later, Alex Van Pelt is fired. Wow, like they just Kraft just got it over with, which is why you got to consider, was this planned like beforehand and whatnot. So you could have seen this coming. It really built off the last like 3-4 weeks, and I think the nail in the coffin was the Chargers game, because at that Chargers game, that's when like everything started to collapse. Like the locker room became divided with the coaches. The locker room became divided with how they felt about the fans. The coaching staff was divided between Mayo and Alex Van Pelt. And now that he's fired, more reports are coming out where the players were downing him back all the way in the spring because he was new, he was making things up on the fly. So it really brings into question about, like, you could have seen this coming after, and it's just crazy to think, because after the first Bills game where they played so well, they had a lead, you would have thought he had this job secured, but it's just like bad thing after bad thing piling on this season. The press conferences were never a good look. He was always throwing somebody under the bus, or just just being an idiot. That's there's nothing more you can say other than he was severely underqualified, and they should not have given him the job in the first place because he didn't know what he was doing. You go from assistant linebackers coach, not even calling plays, all the way to head coach. You're underqualified. You don't know what you're doing. You're not ready for this. So there were more reports. Now it's kind of 50-50 right now on whether GM Elliott Wolf is gonna stay or leave. I think it's gonna depend on the head coach. Like, if Vrabel comes in, I think Wolf is gone. But if Ben Johnson comes in, if Vrabel comes in, I think Wolf stays. But if Ben Johnson comes in, I think Wolf is gone. It's surprising to me because GMs and head coaches should be hired and fired together, and Wolf is the one person where I would have fired him first because he has a track record of being bad. He was hired in 2020 for a director of scouting, so he was, involved in the draft and whatnot. And what have we done since 2020? Be awful in drafting, be awful in rookie development, and he's the one to blame. He's the one picking the players for the most part. I know Bill's there, but he's right there, maybe second man up in that. So, if anything, there should be an argument for Wolf being fired first and not Mayo. But since they fired Mayo, I think they should just clean house. Same as like last offseason. They got to get rid of Wolf because you don't want a situation like Jacksonville where they have a new head coach and the GM is there and they're not going to be on the same page. They're not going to think the same. So you really want to avoid that. You want the head coach and the GM to come in together and get fired together. So you might as well get fired together. And I think the biggest thing was the Crafts felt a lot of pressure to go get Vrabel. They should have got him last offseason. The keys were all there. The signs were all there. So this season around, Vrabel is still available. And I think that Jets interview, when they saw that Vrabel was going to get an interview with the Jets, it was okay. If we want Vrabel, we got to sign him now, because if not, he's going to Chicago or the Jets, or he's leaving. So I think they had to take, they had to swallow the pill. All right, Mayo's not the guy, but we have to get Vrabel now, or else we're never going to get him again. Even if it's not Vrabel, but I think that interview and Vrabel pushing the Crafts to be like, come get me now, I think that really, that helped Mayo leave. So the second Mayo was fired, it seemed like a booking. Okay, Vrabel's going to be the guy. It's pretty much like that. That was the consensus. Says, okay, you're going to fire Mayo and Vrabel's going to come in. All the signs are pointing there. He's checking all the boxes that the Crafts reportedly want. So it would just make sense that Vrabel is the heavy favorite to get the Patriots job. Mayo was just not ready, It was just, the media was a glimpse of the mess that was going on in the organization. He didn't know. His opinion would change from Monday to Tuesday to Saturday to Sunday. His game planning was poor. His player relation was poor for the most part. His accountability was the biggest issue. But I think the roster is a serious mess, but there is something to work with. You can't necessarily blame the roster for being the reason why the Pats fail, because if you're watching the games, you're seeing, okay, Mayo only threw 2 challenges in the whole season. That's ridiculous. You're seeing players get worse week after week. You're seeing a lack of involvement in players. You're seeing an increase in penalties week after week. So it's more just like you. There's teams around the NFL that have bad talent, but they're still able to win games. They're still able to succeed because of coaching, because of leadership. We have the quarterback. The team I mentioned repeatedly is the Washington Commanders because they were in the same situation with a new head coach, new GM, and a rookie quarterback. They were able to go from the number 2 pick to the playoffs. So I don't want to hear an excuse about talent and whatnot. If you have the right guys in the building, everything else is going to fall into place. So, again, if I were the Pats right now, I think he's leaning towards out, but I'm just scared that he's going to stay and it's just going to be a mess, same as like Jacksonville. Now, for the future of the Pats, they have $130 million to spend, the most in the NFL, but it comes with a catch because this is the 3rd year in a row where the Pats are top 5 or whatnot in spending available cap space. So I think now Kraft is really going to have to be like, okay, I need to stop being cheap. I need to start paying more. Because one thing in the Bills game, the last game of the season, the stands were empty. 30 minutes before kickoff, and I'm talking, there's like a baseball level crowd. The game was empty, and the TV kept panning over to the stands. There's more Bills fans than Patriots fans. The parking lot, the news, they're showing the parking lot. The parking lot's empty for what usually is an electric crowd. Usually, New England Gillette's one of the better home stadiums. And you know how bad the product has to be to where people just stop showing up to games. I think it really alarmed the Crafts. Seeing the poor attendance from the Chargers game just get even worse in the last game of the season. Given they were playing backups, but at the end of the day, the fans are going to show up. You just don't want the other team to show up. You'd rather have no one at all. So I think the Crafts seeing all the Bills fans or just the lack of people in general, we're like, okay, we need to snap out of it. We need to get it together. Now for the future of the Patriots, I think it comes down to 2 candidates. It's been 2 candidates from the start. It's either Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator from Detroit, or Mike Vrabel. Now they both have their pros and cons. Vrabel, the defensive minded, he's been here before. He knows the system, and he's been a head coach before with a good track record. Those Titan teams were always pretty good. Those Titan teams were always, one of the more disciplined, accountable, better coached teams. I believe Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the league. Or he was one of the best coaches in the league in his time at Tennessee. So Vrabel does offer you that stability, that safe option. But Ben Johnson, on the other hand, he's more creative, he's more modern, he's gonna fit better with Drake May in the offense. The only issue is he's never been a head coach before. And he's never the forefront in, the Lions locker room videos they post on social media. You never see him wowing in the press conference. So you got to wonder how involved is this guy really? And you want to avoid a situation like Miami is right now with Mike McDaniel, where you have a coordinator, he's really good as a coordinator, but he's not fit to be a head coach. And that's the scary thing about Ben Johnson. That's the risk. Are you going to draft the next Mike McDaniel, or are you going to draft the next Kevin O'Connell? So, if it were up to me, I would choose Mike Vrabel, get Elliott Wolf out. I think Vrabel just fits in with the culture, the fan base, and what the team is looking for. If you want a culture guy and someone that's going to establish a locker room, I think Vrabel is the one you go to because he's done it before. He's going to do it. He's going to be tough. It's just better. His drafting in Tennessee wasn't necessarily the best, but there were some bright spots here and there. So I believe in Mike Vrabel. And that 4th overall pick, there's every issue known to earth about the Pats. Everything outside of quarterback and cornerback. But the guy I would go with at number 4 is Abdul Carter, edge out of Penn State. Watching Calvin Banks and Will Campbell, they're good tackle prospects, but I just feel like Abdul Carter is just another level. And this isn't necessarily a great draft class; it's probably below average. But Abdul Carter is one of those maybe not blue chip, but he's top tier level. He's probably gonna fall right into your laps depending on what the Giants do. So Abdul Carter really looks like the guy. I would go with. And again, if you, my bet is if they hire Vrabel, Abdul Carter is a guaranteed New England Patriot because he fits exactly what Vrabel wants in terms of mindset. So, um, that's just kind of the situation with the Pats. It's a whole mess. They're not scapegoating anybody. The Crafts are, I'm proud of them for actually like swallowing their pride a little bit, taking the fall and holding themselves accountable, being like, okay, we hired the wrong guy. Mayo was the wrong pick. So I'm happy they did it. The reality is what it is now. So all you can do is hope for either Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel and just hope for the best for the Pats. But that's all, folks.